StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you're expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to increase your intelligence. Yes, I'm going to tell you how to get smarter. We do everything here at the Work on Your Game Masterclass. But before we get into that, let me remind everybody or inform you, I send out a text message every morning called the Daily Motivation, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day. I also send out a text message every Monday called the Monday Motivation. That's a little bit longer than my daily text that is going to help you start your week focused, sharp, and on point. And listen, to get into my text community, receive these texts. First of all, get into the community is completely free. Once you get in, we'll tell you what your options are for how much you want to hear from me. Maybe every day might be too much for you. Maybe once a week is just enough. But either way, just text me so you get into my text community. It's free. My number is 305-384-6894. Once you text me, you'll be in the community and we'll take it from there. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is the only place that I do any coaching. If you would like to work with me directly, that is the place to do it. If you would like to be mentored by me, if you want me to be someone who you can come to and share what you're doing, what you're working on, your challenges, and get my expert advice. Yes, I am an expert in the things that I do. We focus on mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability over here. If I can help you with those things, then go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You see your options. You can get started right there. That out the way, let's get into the topic, which is how to increase your intelligence. Now, definition of intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. That's what intelligence means. So intelligence is one of those words that we may use, whether you say it, you think it, you hear people speak it. We use it very often, yet we don't really think about what it really means. Nor does I don't think many people ever think about how to increase their intelligence in a strategic way. Good thing is, I'm gonna tell you how to do both of those things here today. And I think also I think that a lot of adults, especially once we get through schooling, we're done school where they kind of force, I guess if you want to call it intelligence, they force knowledge or information on us. That after that, a lot of times we don't think consciously about making ourselves more intelligent. Now, you may think about getting better and getting more information and learning new strategies, but do you really call it increasing your intelligence? I don't know if people really think about it that way, but it's okay. Either way, I'm still going to do what I'm going to do here in today's show. So let's get into it. Point number one, topic once again is how to increase your intelligence. Number one, speed of processing. Speed of processing. Especially in today's world, intelligence is not really a matter of gathering knowledge or gathering information. That's not really what intelligence means in the world we live in today. Why? Because anybody can gather knowledge. Like you and I could both go gather the same knowledge given an unlimited amount of time. We could all gather knowledge because knowledge is pretty easy to find. It's pretty much been democratized to where you can find it if you have access to the internet, a data connection, or Wi-Fi. You can pretty much find any information. Most of the information you want, 98% of it, you can find if you look around long enough and you know where to look, or at least somebody tells you where to look. So we all have access to stuff like free artificial intelligence, not human intelligence, but AI software, search engines like Google, and a ton of content based information created by everyday people like me and people like you. So, most of us, at least those of you who are listening to this show, you have access to a data plan, you got a phone, you have enough luxury in your life that you are listening to a show like this when you could be doing a whole lot of other things. So, you have a certain level of luxury in your life based on the fact you're listening to this. Because there are people in other parts of the world who don't have the luxury of taking the time out of their day, even if you're doing something else right now, to be listening to a show like this. So you are already living at a pretty high level just by the fact that you're here. And I'm sharing that to say this: you are not at a disadvantage when it comes to access to information. Now, whether you do access it or not is a different question. Whether you actually have access is not in question. You have access. So the difference is when it comes to intelligence is how quickly we access information, not whether or not we do access information. Okay, that's what intelligence is about. How quickly can we access it if and when we need it? That's really what we're talking about when we talk about intelligence these days, is how quickly we can access whatever information it is that we need. So think about this. When you were in school, if your school or your teacher ever offered an open book test, the test where, and it's not any book, it's usually the textbook from the class. You can look anywhere in that book to answer the question. So that's an open book test. Now, let me ask a question. How could anybody get any of the questions wrong on an open book test? How's that happen? How can somebody get a question wrong on an open book test? Just think about that. And while you're thinking about that, I want you to consider this also. School is most of the time a closed book test, right? There's no open books when you're taking the SATs or you're taking midterms or finals in college. And most of the tests that we take in school, even high school, elementary, middle school, most of the time is a closed book test, right? So school is mostly a closed book test. But guess what? Life, all of life, is an open book test. You can open any book you want. You can access any information you want to answer any question that you're facing. So let me ask this question as well. I'm asking you two questions at the same time. Number one, how can anybody in school get a question wrong on an open book test? And number two, since all of life is an open book test, how does anybody get questions wrong? If all life is an open book test, how do people get things wrong? How do people keep making the same mistake over and over again? How do people not have information or they are not executing because it looks like they don't have access to information and they never solve the problem of actually getting the information that they clearly don't have because look at their results, look at their performance. How do people get questions wrong in the open book test called life? How does that happen? Why does anybody get a question wrong? I'm going to answer the question for you. Here's how people get questions wrong. You get a question wrong because of the amount of time it takes you to access the information that you need to answer the question. It takes you too long to get access to the information. It takes you long not to get access, but to access the information. And make sure I'm wording this properly. Many people just take too long to access the information that will help you get the question right. And therefore, in that time that it takes you to get access the right answer, you keep getting the question wrong over and over and over and over and over again. This is how many people live years and years and decades of life, is getting the same questions wrong over and over again because they haven't accessed the information. Not that you don't have access, is that you just do not take advantage of that access. So when you take too long to answer the question and you're on a time limit, and in school you're on a time limit, you're like, how much time do you have to take the test? Like you got the time that the class ends, right? When the bell rings, time's up. In life, when the bell rings, you die. All right, so you're on a time limit. And people who ace open book tests, know there are the people who ace open book tests. They are just the people who already have the information and or they know exactly how to access the information through the open book. Let me say this again. I want to make sure you all are really catching what I'm saying here because there's a metaphor here and there's a literal translation. Is that the people who get the questions right in life and in school, they either already have the information in their head, which means they don't need to access, they don't need to reference the book to get the information. It's kind of like if you call a plumber to fix your pipes, and the plumber comes and they look at the pipe because there's some kind of issue, and they realize what the issue is. They can immediately assess the issue. They go get some tools out of their car and they fix it. They don't need to access the manual to figure it out, right? Either that or B, they don't have the information in their head, but they know exactly where to look to get it. So the time that they need to spend to figure out where's the answer to this question is very small. Those two groups of people. But the people who don't have the information in their head and they don't know where to look, it takes them a long time to get access to the information, whether they are trying to get it or not. Many people just simply abdicate the responsibility, don't even try to get it. Well, I don't know, and I'm not even going to try to figure it out. And they just let it go. I was watching this video. I saw this little video on Twitter today and this guy was, I don't know where he was. I think he was in New York City, maybe. He was just stopping random people on the street. I've seen these kind of videos. He's just stopping random people on the street, and he's asking them questions that seem pretty basic intelligence questions, like how many states are there in the United States? What countries border the United States? How many stars are there on the flag? What's 3 times 3 times 3? What's another one he asked? Questions like that. How many dimes are in a dollar? He's literally asking these questions to people who are adults. These are people over the age of 21, and they were getting these questions wrong. And it was very funny. And of course, we know he probably threw out the ones where they got the questions right. But many of the people he was talking to, they literally did not know the answers to these questions. And the whole point of it is, the reason I'm bringing it up is to say these people probably don't even care to go and fill those knowledge gaps that they clearly have, and don't know how silly. They probably don't even care how silly that they look. That this is getting put on camera that they don't know something like what countries border the United States, or how many dimes are in a dollar. Like how much It was another one he said. He said, how much time is in a quarter of an hour? And people are getting this wrong. This guy who said 25 minutes, very confidently. He said to this other girl, if you were born 10 years ago, how old are you today? And she got the question wrong. And again, he's not talking to 5-year-olds. He's talking to grown people. But anyway, the whole point is intelligence is a matter of not only how quickly you can access the information, not if, but how quickly, and whether you already have access or whether you already had the information in your head or you know exactly where to go. I'm saying all that to say you need to get faster at processing information. You want to be more intelligent, your processing speed must increase. Meaning, you either need to have the information already, you already know it, so you don't need to look anywhere, or B, you know exactly where to look to get it. One or others. One or the other. This is the reason why people have coaches. This is the reason why people are in mastermind groups. This is the reason why people invest in courses and continuing education and learning, so that the information that you know you do not have when you need it, you know exactly where to look, or you got it. You solved that problem. You closed that gap. The people who don't bother to do this, again, they end up with these knowledge gaps, and those knowledge gaps end up manifesting themselves in performance and results gaps. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? So how quickly can you look at a situation and identify what's actually going on? This is a matter of, again, accurate formulas, accurately assessing a situation. Those of you who are professionals at what you do, you can probably accurately assess a situation in your line of work very easily because you've seen it so many times. So you know exactly what you're looking at. And in other areas in which you're not an expert, you probably want to consult an expert or know how to find the information based on what you're assessing. Right? And this is something that, again, artificial intelligence is starting to kind of close this gap on our behalf. But what you'd be surprised to learn, folks, is even though we have this artificial intelligence, you know what? The people who are intelligent now are still going to be the same intelligent people 10 years from now. And the dummies are still going to be the same dummies 10 years from now, despite the fact that AI is going to be basically doing a whole lot of things for us. Why? Because the people who want to be intelligent are still going to be looking for the intelligent. The people who don't want to be intelligent are still going to be not looking for it. All right, so the same problem is still going to exist. All right, same way that the wealth gap has gotten wider, even though it's much easier to make money these days than it was even 30 years ago. The wealth gap got wider. How was that? Even though it's so much easier to make money, it's so much easier to start a business. You don't even need money. You don't even need to leave your house to start a business. How did the wealth gap get wider? You know why? Because the same people who had the initiative to do something is the same number of people. All right, it's more people on the planet, but the percentages have not changed because people are still people. So keep that in mind whenever you're hearing about what AI is going to do and how it's going to make things easier, harder, et cetera, et cetera. The losers are still going to be losers, and the winners are still going to be winners. All right, so the whole point is, again, your processing speed must increase. Any of you who considers yourself an expert or you want to be an expert in any area, you have to be able to assess a situation extremely fast and know exactly what's happening quickly. This is part of your intelligence quotient, your IQ. I remember being on a chess club in middle school, and our chess teacher, his name was Mr. Shutt. He was I guess in the chess world, pretty famous guy. And he would go around the room. He would have like 20 of us all sitting at our desk with a chess game set up. And we'd be on, of course, one side of the board and we'd be playing. He would just go around the room and one by one, he'd just be playing each one of us in chess. And he would just go around the room. He'd be beating all of us, 20 people at the same time, because he was such an expert at the game that he didn't need as much time to assess the board and make a move as we needed to assess the board and make a move. So he would look at the board for 2 seconds, know what to do, move, and be beating us. Whereas we had the time that it took him to go around the room, the 5 minutes it took him to go around the room and get back to us, we took all that time to try to figure out what to do, and we still couldn't beat him. All right, that's expert level intelligence. When you're an expert at something, you can process things that fast. And he would take 1 second to look at the board and be making moves that flummoxed us. We didn't know what to do. And then he would sometimes stop and he would explain to us why his move was better than our move and why we had missed something. And again, he barely had to look at the board. He was an expert at the game. He quickly assessed what was happening and beat us, even though we all had a lot more time to look at things. That's what the speed of processing looks like. Moving on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to increase your intelligence. Number 2 is experience. So my chess teacher from middle school, here's what he had that we didn't have. He had experience, and he had been taught, he had been coached, he had been trained much more than we did, much more than we had, and that's why he was kicking our ass without even trying. So how do you develop the speed of processing? Glad you asked. You develop it through experience. You want to be faster at processing a situation. You need to get the experience of going through the situation, so the next time you see it, you can deal with you can respond to it without having to think so hard because you saw it already. All right, the more you see something, the easier it is to look at it, know exactly what's happening, and then make the next move, whatever that next move is going to be. So my chess teacher in middle school, again, he had so much experience playing the game. It was easy for him to take a visual snapshot of the chessboard, and he immediately knew what his next move was because he had done it so many times compared to us 12-year-olds who he was playing against. He had a lot more experience, and because of this, his processing speed was faster. Now, just having experience does not necessarily make your processing speed faster. It needs to be intentional experience with someone who knows better than you, guiding you along the way. Again, this is normally called coaching or training or some form of consulting. You're being coached by someone who knows what you don't know. So when you mess up or something happens that is new to you, they can point out to you, okay, this happened. Here's why. Here's what you do. Here's why you do it. So now you know. Now you got new intelligence. And the more you go through that, now it starts to become second nature to you. And now you don't need the person to tell you because you can see it yourself. All right. This is the reason why training and coaching and these kind of things get invested into. Because it allows you to process a lot faster. And the people who process the fastest, these are your experts. These are your professionals. These are the highest paid people. So this is why we need to learn from our experiences, because those experiences should be adding to our intelligence. The challenge for many people is that they go through a excuse me, a lifetime of experiences, but they don't really learn from the experiences because number one, they're not constantly thinking about how can I learn from this and get better at it, and number two, they don't have any experts around them to help them learn from the experience, so they don't even know what they should be extracting from the experience. They just have the experience. They went through it, but they don't know anything. So this is how somebody can be 60 years old and they think people should listen to them because of their age, because of the life experience that they have. The problem is their experience is not intentional learned experience. It's just experience. It's just random. You went through it, but you didn't learn anything new. You didn't get any smarter. You did not increase your intelligence despite your experience because you weren't being coached or trained in what you're doing. So just because you have experience in doing something, folks, I want to make sure I'm saying this, does not mean somebody should listen to you. It does not mean you know what you're doing. It does not make you an expert, and it does not make you more valuable. But if you're going through experience and you are being trained, coached, and you are learning through what you're going through, now that experience is actually worth something. There is a difference. There's levels to this. So every experience you have in your thing, it should make you smarter in some way. There should be something that you learn from every experience that makes you more intelligent in your space. That's why I gave you the suggestion several episodes ago of going to bed smarter than you woke up. That can only happen though with there has to be intention behind that. That doesn't happen just because. So you have to assess your activities and your outcomes from those activities on a daily basis or on a moment by moment basis. Like if you're an athlete, you playing a game. I remember when I was in my 20s, I played ball in Mexico, and I came home. I was in Philadelphia. I was playing at my local recreation center, local playground. I was on the outside court, practicing on the outdoor courts, and this guy who was a coach in the neighborhood, this guy named Bob, he knew me from youth. He was on the inside. He was on the inside in the gym, but nobody ever got to just come in the gym and use it. So I remember he came to the door where the door from the inside gym that you could see what's happening on the outdoor court. He came out there and he was just standing there looking, and I saw him. He saw me. We waved at each other, but I didn't talk to him. And then he went back inside. And then about 20 minutes later, he came back out. And he said, "Dre, why don't you come use the gym?" Nobody ever goes in there and uses the gym. So this was already peculiar that he was saying this. So I go in there. There's another kid in there. This kid was probably about 17, 18, about my size, but I could tell he was young. And I go in there and I'm using the court, and Bob, the coach, and this kid are sitting on the bench, and they're kind of watching me but talking to each other at the same time. And Bob finally says, "Dre, why don't you play this kid one on one?" So this whole thing was a setup. He was trying to set me up to play this kid one on one. And I guess Bob eyeballed me as somebody this kid might be able to beat because apparently he had been training this kid for the last hour or so in the gym. He was just trying to groom him to be a better player. So I guess he thought I was going to be his sacrificial lamb to help build up this kid's confidence. Little did he know. So we start playing one on one, and I mopped the floor with this kid. Bob watched the game. I mopped the floor with this kid, and then after the game ended, here's my point here. The kid went and sat on the bench with Bob, the coach, and they're talking. He's basically helping the kid deconstruct why I just kicked his ass and figuring out what happened. And then like 5 minutes go by, I'm still on the court. I'm just shooting around practicing by myself on the court after this one-on-one game that I played with this kid. And Bob says, Dre, why don't you play again? Play again, Dre. So we started playing again, and I mopped the floor with him again. And Bob watched the whole thing, and the kid goes and sits down with Bob again, and they're deconstructing the second ass kicking that I gave to this kid. And then Bob, I guess he got a little bit annoyed that I had beat this kid. I guess he thought the kid was going to beat me. Apparently, I don't know. That's what it seemed, just by the deductive reasoning. And Bob says, "Well, Dre, why don't you play me one on one?" Because Bob actually was a good player back in his day. When we were 15, 16 years old, he was a coach for us. He was still a coach at this point. He wasn't coaching me, but he would coach the youth. And he was actually better than he looked. He's a big, fat dude. Bob's like 300 pounds, but he was actually pretty quick on his feet. He was a good outside shooter. And just overall, he's actually he was much better than he looked. He didn't look like he could play, but he could actually play. So now by this point, he wasn't going to be beating me. So I was like, play me one on one. So I guess he was trying to prove a point to this kid, like this guy that just kicked your ass twice, he is not unbeatable. You just got to beat him the right way. So I guess Bob wanted to demonstrate to this kid that I could be beat. So we start playing one on one, and I'm beating Bob. And Bob, I knew him from back in the day. He had his old man tactics. If he was losing, he would just start trying to do things to muck up the game. So he would basically foul you on every play, or call calls, or just kind of do stuff. So it got to the point that we didn't even really get to finish the game because we just start arguing over calls. I was winning, and the game never really got finished. And I guess he felt like he had proved the point. I don't think he did, but that was actually, I think that was the last time I actually even saw this guy, Bob. That's another story. But anyway, the whole point is, I'm bringing all that up to say that he was actually doing right by the kid because he trained the kid, he was working out with him, and then after the kid went through an experience of getting his ass kicked by me in the game, he coached the kids some more. Okay, here's what happened. Here's what you did wrong. Here's what you got to do. Here's your adjustments. That was the right thing to do. Then we played again, and I beat him again, and he did the same thing again. Here's what you got to do. Here's your adjustments. And then when it was clear that the kid wasn't going to be able to execute on these adjustments, not successfully at least, Bob said, "Okay, let me show you." And then he failed too, but he had the right idea. All right, the execution was off, but the idea was correct. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to increase your intelligence. Number 3, implementation. So this is what, again, Bob, my old coach, was trying to do with this kid. He was telling him what to do and then telling him, okay, go out there and implement what I just told you. So putting your experience and information to work. See, the more you do this, again, this is known as implementation. Putting your experience and information to work is known as implementation. The more you do this, the more intelligent you become because now you have not only quote unquote book knowledge, which is like somebody telling you something and you hearing it, but you haven't actually done it yet. Now you have what we call experiential knowledge because now you've actually done it, or activity knowledge because you've actually done the thing, not just read about it and heard about it. So you don't have theoretical knowledge, then you have real knowledge. You don't just have consumer knowledge, you have real knowledge because, again, you don't really know something until you've done it. This is what people are referring to. Again, when you hear the phrase book smart, it doesn't necessarily mean school. Book smart can mean going to Amazon and buying a bunch of books and reading them. You don't know shit until you've actually applied the stuff that you read in the book. So anytime somebody tells me that they're reading a book, one question I have for them, okay, tell me what you applied from the book. Tell me one thing you took from that book and you applied. I had a friend of mine, reach out to me via text message a couple weeks ago, and she was saying to me, "Hey, do you follow such and such influencer online? This person you all know?" And I said, and she said, "Have you downloaded his whatever? He had something he was offering for free to download." I said, "I've heard of the guy, but I don't really follow his material." And she said, "Well, you got to get this. This is amazing." So she sent me the link to this thing, and I looked at it, and this guy's giving away a whole bunch of free stuff to download on his website. And it was a whole lot of stuff. It was actually very impressive what he was offering to download. But I did not download it. Why didn't I download it? Because I didn't need any of the stuff that he was offering. It's actually impressive what he was offering, but I really don't care, don't need it, and I wasn't going to apply any of it. It was just have collected digital dust in my inbox because I wasn't going to do anything with that information. And she sent it to me, and I wrote her back, and I said to her, "Tell me, of all this stuff that you downloaded, what have you actually applied and implemented?" And her response was something about like an AI chatbot or something. And all the stuff this guy was offering, it was like a lot of stuff. It was hours and hours of free material that this guy was giving. And I said, I didn't say anything to her. I just didn't even respond to her because the thought that I had is what I'm going to tell you right now. You downloaded all that stuff, and the best thing you got was something about an AI chatbot. What'd you download it for? All right, and this is how people end up becoming professional information gatherers. All right, what this guy was giving away was a lot of information that will entice people to download it and give up their email address to get it. It was a great lead magnet for him, but is it actually useful for the people who are downloading it? For the most part, most people are not going to go through 90% of the stuff that he was offering for free, and they wouldn't know what to do with it anyway, because all the stuff that he was giving away, you would still need to know the strategy underneath it, not just the tactics of what he was telling you that he did. But anyway, this is the whole point. This is how people become book smart. You got all this information, but you have never applied any of it, so you don't really have activity knowledge. And activity knowledge is the only real knowledge. You don't. If any of you who's a college student listening to me right now, and you're listening to this, maybe before class or after class, or maybe during class, because the teacher sucks. You don't know anything just because you went to college. You know less than nothing. Actually, you know even less because you just wasted. Not wasted. Let me not use the word wasted. I went to college too. You just used 4 years gathering information, but you have not applied anything. You don't know anything till you apply it. You don't know it till you have done it. You don't really know it till you can teach it. You don't truly know it till you get paid to teach it. So you don't want your smarts to end at the end of a book. Everybody got it? You want your smarts to translate to actual behavior and activity. This is all based on what you have implemented. Remember that you don't truly know something again until you've done it. You don't really know it till you can teach it, and you ain't really at that level till you can get paid to teach it. You get paid for it. All that said, let's recap today's class. How to increase your intelligence, which is defined as the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Number one, speed of processing. You have to be able to access the information that you have or have access to as quickly as possible. Experts can access information very quickly. They don't need as much time as an amateur does. Number two, experience. Once you have access to the information and you develop the speed of processing, you develop the speed through experience. So the more you go through it, the easier it is for you to access it because you've done it before and before and before. Because you've seen the same thing so many times, it's easy for you to respond. So in sports, for example, I remember basketball players would always ask me, how can I dribble the ball like Derrick Rose or Kyrie Irving or Kobe Bryant or something like that? And I would explain to the players because they would often ask, well, how can I use this move in a game, or in what situation would I do this move or this dribble or this crossover? And I explained to the players that that's not really the way that it works. What you do is you practice moves so often that when you get into the game, you do them instinctively without having to think about it. So you got to put yourself in the situation of having seen the situation so many times that when you get in the situation, you can react instinctively without having to consciously think. Because consciously thinking in the middle of a sports match will take too long. All right, if you're in a boxing ring and you need to constantly think about what punch to throw, you want to get your head knocked off because your conscious thought takes too long. You need to be able to react instinctively. Number three, implementation. Putting your experience and information to work. The more you do this, the more intelligent you become because now you have implemented, now you have experiential and activity knowledge, which is the only true knowledge that's the first level of knowledge that actually matters is when you've actually done something. Next level is when you can teach it. Next level is when you get paid for it. There's levels to this shit. All that said, text me. So you are in my text community. It's free to join. I send out the Monday motivation every Monday, daily motivation every day. My number is 305-384-6894. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. If you want to get some hands-on knowledge on how to do your things and instructions on how to go and actually implement them so you get some activity knowledge, the real baseline level of knowledge that matters, go to WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. I will personally work with you and walk with you through how to actually do that in your area. Again, we focus on mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability in the university. Work on your game. Dre, all